This is the Fantasy Roadshow.
Oh, look at the doggy.
Yep.
Who do we got back there?
That's Moose.
Moose. What a name.
Moose. I love it.
I love it. Moose.
Awesome.
Get it. I guess that's our new intro. Get us in here, Rye.
Yeah, welcome in, roadies, to another episode of the Fantasy Road Show, hosted by yours truly, Kulz and Truck. You can find me at fantasy_trucker, find him at Kulz_sports. Follow the show at Fantasy Road Show. Check us out on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast form, stop what you're doing. Go to youtube.com/sportsethos. The video is live. Also, check out the Substack, thefantasyroadshow.substack.com. And we are joined by a new guest, first-time guest on the Road Show, contributor for Sports Ethos, Brian Shade. Brian, how you doing today? And thank you for joining us.
Doing well. How about you guys?
Good, man. Holiday. It's Labor Day. Moose just lit up my day a little bit. I mean, that's just awesome. I'm a big dog guy, but just look at Moose looking so comfortable with back on that chair. I love it.
That's his spot.
We're gonna do dive in, spotlight B Shade for coming on and joining us. Another Sports Ethos contributor, big brain guy. I really like the. I think we have a very different style in terms of how we look at fantasy sports, but definitely respect your opinion and think that, I love the different perspectives we get at Sports Ethos. Everyone kind of has their own twist, and you can trust the word of every single person. So excited to hear what you got for us this year. And then we're gonna dive into awards as well. So should be a pretty fun episode. And that being said, buckle up.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, like Cole said, we're getting into our awards predictions. So the NFL Honors Awards, talking about MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and the Coach of the Year. We are leaving out Comeback Player of the Year because that is kind of a guarantee of who's going to get that. It's Damar Hamlin. So no need to really cover that too much in depth. But, we're going to get into it today, talk about who we think is going to win the award, and then kind of a dark horse on who we think has the most potential to win that award. Because as we know, it doesn't always work out. The favorites don't always win every category. So someone's going to win, and we'll see who it is. So,
First, let's get into let's introduce Brian to the roadies. Like we do with all of our guests, we're gonna get an intro, where you're from, favorite team, give us a quick fantasy breakdown of said team, and then a little bit of how you got into fantasy, ended up at Sports Ethos, and kind of what you're doing there.
Yeah, so I was born like 20 minutes north of Philly.
Oh, shit.
I grew up mostly in Baltimore area in Maryland. So I moved here when I was like 2.5, currently living outside of Annapolis, Maryland, but I'm in the process of moving to Florida. We're building on a property. So we still got to get that done with. That'll be about a year before we go down there.
Where in Florida?
Like 20 minutes north of Tampa.
So Bucks, is that you gonna be a big Bucks guy?
No, but I mean, I can enjoy their future tanking and up and coming team. Hopefully they get Caleb Williams. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll enjoy watching them for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of trap you into saying that and send this podcast to all your Philly boys and just get absolutely roasted.
Yeah, no, that's not happening. But I actually started fantasy in 2003. I was like 8 at the time. I just had a family league, and I had no clue what I was doing. I think I just drafted McNabb first every time. Donovan McNabb, that is. But I've learned a lot since then. I've been doing, I obviously got big into it in college, and then I started here with Sports Ethos. This is the first season for a bunch of us.
Yeah.
Started here. I love auction leagues. I think they're the most fun. I think the freedom you have to do what you want with them. I enjoy those the most. And kind of my strategy to fantasy is definitely more like data like a background in data. That's mostly what I do for work now. So I just give me an Excel sheet and I'll work with it and hope to give some useful insights out of all the data I can find.
Love it. So few things I want to talk about here, specifically Philly. So we had our first. We have an episode out there that is in the vault.
Oh God.
Ryan and I were just trying to figure out fantasy, like what we're gonna do, what this podcast is. I went on the road with Ryan in the 18-wheeler. I was waiting to move down to Austin, and we go from Chicago to Philly, and we're just figuring it out, right? Like just a huge brainstorm. End up in Philly. A guy I work with is a big Philly guy. He went to the same high school as Swift. Do you know what high school that is? DeAndre Swift?
I think that's in Bucks County.
I don't. So I could look it up here in a second. I don't recall, but he's just Philly guy, right?
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, where do we film? So we go to Chickies and Pete's, and just kind of like liquid courage, having a couple beers, about to press play, and we'll just kind of tease. At some point when we get a big enough following, we'll release this episode. But one beer turned into I won't say the number,
like 32.
Yeah. So just the brotherly love. Pete Jr. was there and just feeding us beers and just like things. That was our first intro to Philly. So I'm guessing you grew up going to games. You've been aware of.
I've actually
Pigs and
never,
Pete's,
so I never went to my first live NFL game was like 2 years ago. It was Redskins, Eagles at the time, now Commanders, in DC. I've never been to Philly Stadium. I moved when I was like 2.5, and then I have a few buddies that kind of live around the area now. I just never made it out. I was always sitting on the couch watching. I do find more comfort in that.
Yeah.
But one of my best friends lives in Philly, and I'm hoping to find a time to go to the game.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just a big Philly pretzel guy.
Yeah. So I'm getting some background noise from someone. Do you hear that, Rye?
I do, yeah.
Hello. All right, we're good. I don't know what happened there. So my other Philly story is I went to a Bears. You brought up McNabb, and it made me remember this. I went to a Bears-Eagles game, playoff game, in Chicago, and the Eagles just absolutely beat the living shit out of us. And I don't recall what year it is. I'm sure I could look up the game, but I remember it being a pretty bad game and walking out of the stadium, and then there's just Eagles fans being absolutely relentless and just hammered and like fighting Bears fans. And I was so young at this time, like under 10, and just thinking, like, looking at my dad being like, why are they so angry? They just won. And that was like
any reason to riot.
Yeah, that was the intro to Philadelphia fan base for me. But obviously as an adult now, I kind of didn't need to ask that question. It's been answered time and time again. I love it. So Eagles, tell us about, obviously incredible year last year. We can expect a lot of the same. I think the running back room is the question mark. Give us a breakdown, fantasy relevance from quarterback through tight end.
I think Jalen Hurts is QB1. I think when you look at last season, their strength of schedule was very poor. Going into it, people even knew that. This year, it's way up. So in the fourth quarter of like half their games, they weren't even trying. They were just running the football out, making it to next week, trying to avoid injuries. So even if you have 4 more close games, that means Jalen Hurts is actually playing in the fourth quarter and doing more, accumulating more stats, etc. I just think like their passing offense, I think it's going to have a big increase. The rushing game, I take your best bet. I think it's Gainwell. You can argue Swift is more talented. I hear you. Penny more effective in a running game, but I just think Gainwell's trusted there. And then I just think the way their RPO offense works, it tends to just hyper target whoever's playing. So I think Devonta, AJ, and Dallas Goedert are just going to be – they'll have 80% of the whole target share, I think, just them combined. And I think that you're going to be happy if you end up with one of them. In my one home league, it's an auction draft, mostly because I'm in a bunch of other leagues. I just said I'm going all Eagles. I have Hurts, I have Brown, I have Smith, and I have Goddard. And I'll live and die by them, and I think I will be pretty successful.
Just 30 points, 35, 42 points a game. Just, So I am a huge Devonta Smith guy. I think he's awesome. I think he's getting better. So I'm all for I just like Devonta Smith at his ADP better than I like AJ Brown at his. And you can't go wrong either way, right? I think Devonta is as good and could be counted on just as much as AJ Brown. So I'll get him at the end of the second as opposed to spending a first-round draft pick on Brown.
I see Smith as having more receptions, Brown having more touchdowns. So it's just he's a bigger target. He's going to be way easier to have your box out fade. Goddard's going to be big in the red zone as well. Devonta Smith just gets open. He's
his speed
doesn't look like Keenan Allen, but like that's his game. Or just route running is amazing, and I think he'll be the leading receptions. Brown probably a little bit more yards and touchdowns.
I can see over that. There, Rye. You're frozen. No, you're good. We had zero technical difficulties earlier, and now we're starting to freeze up a little bit. You're good. Give us your take on those wide receivers.
Yeah, I very big on Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, but I'm curious to see how this all shakes out with Goddard fully healthy. I know that Devonta Smith got an uptick last year with Goddard being out, so I just want to make sure that wasn't a fluke and wasn't solely because Goddard was out. So I'd like to see how all that shakes out.
Yeah. So to add with the running backs, I mean, I've always kind of been a Gainwell guy. Last year in the playoffs, I agree with you. Like last year in the playoffs, he looked good. Like it's not only is he the veteran presence there based on last year, like he was really coming into his own and complemented what they're doing on that offense so well. Everyone's talking about, they brought in Penny, they brought in Swift at huge discounts, right? Like they literally had there wasn't much risk bringing in those guys, and the talent level of Swift, like I think that can be an absolute grand slam in that offense because he does have a lot of the same skill set as Gainwell. Obviously, you're adding a new element. He needs to learn the offense. He needs, but his running style and skill set behind that offense, behind that offensive line, and with that RPO and how much space that it opens up, I think Swift. I mean, he's going to have some monster runs. So I think you're going to see some 60-yard touchdowns, stuff like things along those lines. And hopefully later in the season, he really builds on some momentum. But from a weekly consistency, just trusting the guy there, to me, it's Gainwell as well. And I always kind of echoed that statement. It kind of picked up in the fantasy world late when that first preseason game came along, and he was, I think he was sitting, right? Or
so what they actually did was they rotated. I think they basically rotated the running backs who was sitting. So he was sitting the first time, which obviously got the most news about it because it was the first game, and then after that, I think Swift sat, Boston Scott sat. Like they all kind of sat once. Trey Sermon, we've all heard about from his 49er days and thought he was going to be great. He was their bell cow in preseason, and then they cut him. Like they don't normally play much in the preseason. They use those practices. I forget what they call them, like the live practices with other teams. They use that for their preseason mostly. Yeah.
So was people like to react, right? They have nothing better to do than just sit and listen to news. So like you and I probably were sitting there just being like, not putting much stock into that, but the fantasy world and that those types of narratives get ran with, and then you see ADP's effect because of it. So that was the case there. And if you even just listen, I think that's what Sirianni came out and said. He's like, we're going to rotate. Gainwell and Scott are going to sit game one. So there wasn't too much there, but anyways, yeah. So, I had another point to go to. This cold is really just scrambling my brain, but anyways, so give us like what you do with Ethos, what we can look towards, your work. I mean, we'll be promoting it as well, but let the roadies know just where to find you and like what kind of things you're going to be working on that can help them win their fantasy leagues.
Yeah. So I started out by doing offensive line rankings actually in the off season. That was really cool for me to just dig in, and that's never something I've done in the past, but obviously as an Eagles fan, I do
Philly's top three.
Yeah, I appreciate a good offensive line, and I don't even feel like a homer saying they're far and away the best. There's definitely like Lions are up there, Vikings, Ravens are up there. Like just the difference that an offensive line makes, I think, is huge in fantasy because you can just plug and play someone. If the Eagles were just I need a bell cow back, you could plug and play anyone of starting caliber and they'd be successful. Unfortunate to the fantasy community, Eagles just rotate a lot. But like
Madison, perfect example. You just named the Vikings.
Yeah. So like I just think that's a good plug and play option. I've used him in a bunch of like 0 RB setups. He's my first running back on the board. But I've done that. I've actually, first time ever, I did projections. The goal was kind of create a model for this year. And then moving forward, I'm hoping I can work with a bunch of people at Sports Ethos and get like their opinions on it. Because the hard part in these models is like, all right, what's Devonta Smith's yards per catch going to be this year? Like, what's the running back share going to be? What's the wide receiver share? And I did best estimate and best guesses based off previous data, but I also think it might be useful next year to say, hey, I have this model set up. Like, let me talk to you guys and say, all right, Ryan, what do you think for this year? Like, what do you think the Bears are going to split their receiver share with? And just so that we have differing views and opinions, and you just plug and play in the model and it'll spit out projections. So I'm looking forward to that for the future. And then in season, I'm working on a bunch of buy low, sell highs and a trade show with Marsalis.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. To me, that's like next level, getting into it and using. Yeah. I mean, you're a data guy, right? Like, that's what this game is,
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and that's something that I would benefit from tremendously. Like, I'm sure you've listened to my takes and it's pretty much football based, right? Like, I use a lot of eye tests and I think it's relatively accurate and that's why I have fantasy success. But if I could lean on a model like that, it would take my analysis to the next level. It's not how my brain originally comprehends the game. But anyways, that's super exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how that grows. And this being a statistical based game, I mean, that's how you got to look at it. That's what's that's just something that takes you over the edge. Right. So, but yeah, what I wanted to also talk about, what you mentioned with the O-line rankings, like that's something you hear, like certain roles have a lot of fantasy production tied to them.
Mhm.
And people don't realize that like it stems from the online or from the O-line rankings, right? Like,
Yeah.
Look at the Vikings running back. That role last year, Madison stepped in and had 20 carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown, a couple catches. That's the O-line doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think another example of that is this year. If you were to put like Cam Akers and his expected share on a really good offensive line, he'd be top 10 running back.
Yeah.
But that offensive line, they were in the bottom 5. I think they might have been last place. And it's just, yeah, he's going to get fed the ball, but is it going to be worthwhile? I don't know. Like, hopefully they improve, but they have like half their starters should maybe be NFL starters. It's like if you're not a big NFL fan, you can name 5 other players other than Stafford, Akers, Donald, and Kupp. I'd be impressed.
Yeah, we're gonna see what happens there. I will say, I know Brian Allen on that line. He's a Hinsdale guy. I've spent some time with him for a few 4th of Julys. So Brian, if you hear this,
sorry.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He's buddies. He's a good buddy with one of my friends' younger brothers, and it's always funny seeing him on the 4th of July. He's an absolute house, and like all of his friends will just get drunk and start running at him, and he just throws everyone away. It's always so funny to see. But yeah, no, that Rams team's going to be. They're two years away from Super Bowl. We obviously saw last year with all the injuries, and then having this Cup news come out so close to the season, it's like, oh man, is this going to happen again? Then the rebuild is scary too, right? Like,
yeah,
they sacrificed a lot of their long-term assets for, it's
worth it. You win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and Stafford gets in the Hall of Fame. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to get into some awards here?
Let's do it.
Right, Ryan. What are you thinking here? Do you want to? We're gonna do like awards or picks for our awards, and then dark horses? How do you want to structure this?
Yeah. Let's go through each category, starting with MVP and go down, and each of us will go through and say who we realistically think is going to win the award, and then a dark horse pick to go along with it, who we think is probably the most capable to come from behind victory there.
I love it. Well, Shade, start us off with MVP, and why is it Jalen Hurts this year?
I try not to be a homer here.
Is it Hurts? Is that I heard you say he's
No,
QB1? Oh, okay.
It's not. I like to follow the money, so I'm going Joe Burrow. He hasn't signed his long-term contract yet. He has every reason to just absolutely ball out to get every dollar that he's worth. And I think he's in a tough division where they're playing good teams. His name is, it's very much like a narrative. I think all of these are like, there's a narrative behind everything.
For sure.
And I think if he comes in, he's recovered from his calf injury. He just absolutely balls out, which he's expected to. And if the Bengals get a first round bye or their top 3 seed, I think you could see him winning it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I love to hear that being an LSU guy. Burrow will always be very close to my heart. But I want to talk about his contract. So I heard rumblings that he could potentially be the first percentage of cap contract guy in the NFL. Have you heard that narrative at all?
I mean, I think that's smart. And I think the narrative I've heard is the Bengals ownership doesn't have that much money. And so I'm a CPA, so I enjoy the money taxes side of stuff. So like, from what I know, I think you need to put like a portion of the contract under basically away. You have to have the money and put it away so that they're guaranteed portion of the guaranteed money. And if they're not that wealthy to do that, and he's signing a $500 million contract, I think that's where the issues maybe come. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up with a shorter, more guaranteed contract and they just keep going to it. Or he could go percentage, which maybe there's something in the paperwork that makes it so that because the cap isn't known every year, it's not really guaranteed money. So maybe that's a way to work around Cleveland's ownership issues.
That is interesting. So I love that you're taking your career experience into this because, that makes it so much more fun. Right. Yeah, that is interesting. I would love to see what I don't know, a sports agent would have to say about that, if that's a way to get around it. You obviously wouldn't be able to give him. So my worry with giving him a short-term, more guaranteed contract is that's a guy I want to lock in long-term, right?
He is better.
Yeah.
For the
10 years.
10 years.
And what happens when Chase is, it's better from money per year standpoint, but also what happens if the team regresses a little bit? Jamar Chase's contract's up and they're like, yo, let's go down to New Orleans or whatever. You know what I mean? That would be scary to me. So yeah, that'd be very interesting. I don't know the answer to that either, but if that's a way to get around the guaranteed money thing, that makes so much more sense. So Burrow MVP, Ryan, who do you have?
I personally think it's going to be Mahomes. Mahomes is going to win this award. He is the best in the league, and I think he's going to prove that another year. They're in the middle of this dynasty, and if I had to, put my entire life savings on a pick, it's going to be Mahomes.
So, well, as your CPA, Brian recommends you do not do that.
I do.
I won't be doing it, but if I just think he's got the best shot. So,
you've heard me talk about Josh Allen. I'm taking Allen. It's funny that we are all going AFC. It basically at this point, it's going to be who's the top seed in the AFC from what we just all named. Mine's Josh Allen. I think between the elbow injury and his rumored off-field drama, you saw a little bit of a down year, but that Bills offense is outstanding. I think that they are going to just look like that Bills team that puts up 4 touchdowns in the first half and just kind of, if teams can stay, almost like the Eagles last year, if teams can keep up with them, then they're just going to score 45 points. Just their offense is so high powered and they score so fast. And I think Josh Allen, Gabe Davis should have his health this year. If you see a healthy Bills offense, you add the James Cook element into it, who you talked about, 0 RB strategies. He's another guy I would look at late because of his skill set in an offense that flies and his ability to catch the ball. So I just think it's going to be such an exciting team. I have them winning the Super Bowl, and if they're 1 seed, Josh Allen's going to be looking very pretty for that MVP. So yeah, that's who I have. And then just to kind of jump into dark horse, it segues perfectly of all of us taking AFC quarterbacks, because I can't really go much lower than Lawrence, but I could see Herbert and Lawrence being 2 guys that, their team. First of all, we've all talked about Herbert and how we expect him to bounce back, but Trevor Lawrence too, man, weak division. That offense is adding a wide receiver 1 to it. We saw how big of a step forward they took last year. Well, here we are in year 2. I think they can take another massive step forward. You add Tank Bigsby, Ridley, 2 huge pieces to that offense. I could see them having a great year, and Trevor Lawrence ended up being MVP because of it.
So I'll follow up on that because that was also my dark horse.
Yeah.
I think my narrative thing there was second year with Peterson, another quarterback, second year with Peterson, almost won MVP in Carson Wentz. And I just think if you eliminate the Urban Meyer year, this is second year. He's got all the talent in the world. Everyone knows it. That division isn't the best. So I think he's set up to win the division, be a 3 seed maybe or 4 seed. And it just no one questions the talent. Maybe it all comes together with Ridley.
Yeah. Honestly, like I've said this, I'm a huge Burrow guy. I thought that the better NFL quarterback was going to be Trevor Lawrence. And I said that after Burrow just dominated a national championship against him. But from like a skill set standpoint, like in his arm, Lawrence is the more talented arm, but Burrow is an absolute leader. He's got your intangibles. He's your fucking stud. He's got all the swag,
Stone cold killer.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that being said, like you're going to see Lawrence take things to a whole different level. We're going to be doing our futures episode here. It's all going to release this week, and I believe I have Lawrence yards and touchdowns. I think his touchdown number was like 25 last year, and his over-under set at like 25.5 or 26. And I just think because of that team, I see him throwing for 30 touchdowns. Yeah. I just see him taking a step forward in an offense where Kirk kind of is able to settle into his wide receiver 2 role, and Ridley is just itching to get out back on the field. And I mean, he's in his athletic prime. I think it's just going to be an awesome offense. What do you got, Ryan?
Yeah, I like where you guys went with those dark horse picks. Very, very capable of winning the MVP award. Mine is Lamar Jackson, someone who's won this award before. He's in the best. Yeah, he's in the best situation he's been in since he's been in the NFL. So if this offense is what we think it's going to be with Todd Monken, and if they make the necessary steps with this improved wide receiving core, I mean, to me, this is probably a bet that I'm going to be making this year, is to throw some money on Lamar Jackson winning this award, because to me, it's just he's very, very capable. This offense is going to be humming, and I really like Lamar Jackson this year.
Yeah, just to kiss Brian's ass a little bit, it's going to be the AFC is who is playing the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And one of those in one of those teams, I mean, I've been pretty vocal on the Ravens this year. I think, I have Bills winning the Super Bowl, but Ravens are a team that I could see myself sprinkling some money on, because whether it's the Bills or the Ravens, I'll be able to hedge out of that, come conference championship time, because the Ravens are, I just love that all of that drama from Lamar contract, everything goes away. You have a healthy Andrews, you add Zay Flowers, Dobbins is healthy. It's just like coming off of a year where nothing went right. You get a new coordinator who wants to speed things up in an offense that has so much speed, but also complements each other so well between Zay and Andrews. So you're right, Ryan. Like I could see Lamar having one of those video game number type seasons, which will just, it's like Hurts last year, right? Like same kind of thing. So what do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I have a small future on Ravens actually anyway. Yeah. So I agree with that. And again, I'm Maryland area now, so people are loving their Ravens. So
yeah. Are you
got their purple camo pants on them as well? So it's like
sitting down, eating a crab cake, watching Ravens highlights.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's move on to Offensive Player of the Year. Who do you got, Brian?
I mean, I was just scrolling through, and I thought one of the funniest things I saw was Taysom Hill at like 36th best odds. Don't recommend doing that, but just that he's up there with like other top tier talent. It's like, all right then. But mine is almost an add-on with my MVP, and Offensive Player of the Year is normally just your best non-quarterback recently. So if Burrow has an MVP year, Chase is having 15-plus touchdowns. So
Yeah.
I got Jamar Chase in there. I just think it's
sorry
a good way to
cut you off.
stack your bets.
I have him as well. So just wanted to add that in there. Chase, I mean, he's just, you know how I feel about those that Ryan knows how I feel about those two LSU receivers. Like Chase was the alpha in that wide receiver room in college. He's the better talent. He has Burrow, that undeniable chemistry. I could see him coming out and he was leading. He had more targets than Chase per game last year, or than Jefferson. Sorry, this cold scrambled brain. Than Jefferson last year when healthy, and I think the worry with him is like, is Higgins going to eat into that production? I just think those two are going to continue to get better together, and they're starting to enter their prime, and they're going to put up some ridiculous seasons. And I think this is going to be the start of that.
Agreed.
Yeah, I like that. It's hard not to pick Jamar Chase here, but I am going with Justin Jefferson. We saw what he did last year. Every year he's been, 1,400 yards, 1,600 yards. Last year, 1,800 yards. Like if he gets 2,000 yards this year, he's just looks unstoppable right now. So I think Justin Jefferson's going to win it. But my dark horse pick is Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is going to go out there, and if he ends up playing out of his mind, if he ends up getting better with his arm and runs like he did last year, which was a historic rushing season for quarterbacks, we saw what Lamar Jackson did statistically when he won MVP, and it's not out of the range of possibilities for Justin Fields to have a similar type of season. So that he's my dark horse, and I would love if he actually ended up winning that award.
That is an interesting pick. So what does that mean? Like, does that mean that one of these guys we talked about in Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow win MVP, and then Fields just has an awesome year, so they put him in at Offensive Player of the Year? I can kind of see that. I mean, that's interesting. Let's put it that way. Let's say
give
he has
MVP to the more passing heavy, give the Offensive Player of the Year to the more rushing heavy.
That's interesting.
Thought about that.
Yeah. So I kind of like that. And listen, like Ryan has some very high hopes for the Bears this year. You
don't say.
Yeah, and like a lot of Bears fans think that can happen. I still think they take a massive step forward, and they're 8-9. I think it was my official Bears prediction, which is a huge step forward from last year, and that means that offense is going to look good, and Fields is going to look really good. So I can get on board with that, saying he rushes for, I don't know, another 1,000 whatever yards it ends up being, but you see his arm pick up, him and DJ Moore look really good together. I can get on board with that. It's definitely interesting to go quarterback at that position after, it's been, like Shade said, so offensive player, non-quarterback heavy. But yeah, I like that. Mine's a kind of a narrative pick as well. I could see a world where Bijan Robinson just goes off and wins offensive Rookie of the Year and Offensive Player of the Year. I do have the Falcons winning that division, and just that's going to require Ritter to be
average,
which I think he can be. But yeah, I mean that division's weak. It's going to be, in my mind, between them and the Saints. And Bijan is such a talented, multi-threat type player that if you see him kind of have those fantasy cheat codes in the receiving game, get creative. They're just like we've heard Gibbs, get some slot work. Do you think that's going to happen? I want to ask that, Shade. Do you think we're going to see Bijan in the slot with the Falcons trying to get Algier, or maybe some two running back sets? Like I see them wanting to get Algier on the field, and that could be them both on the field at the same time.
I hope so. I hope they do that with Honestly, any running back that you're going to put that much money or draft capital in, I hope you have the mindset of let's get them in the passing game. Let's model their game off of Christian McCaffrey and just almost do like a positionless, similar to the 49ers approach, just like they can all run, they can all catch. I mean, he's proven that he can catch, and I hope they do that with them.
Yeah.
It's bold. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, he could have the opportunity, and I hope he does. It's just I will not be putting money on that. I think obviously offensive rookie of the year is probably the better bet,
100%.
but it is dark horse.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's to me, it's just dark horse. That's it. I think his 3-1 offensive rookie of the year is definitely the best route to go. I mean, in order for anyone else to win that, I guess we'll just segue right into it. In order for anyone else, I want to hear your dark horse at player of the year, but in order for anyone else to win the offensive rookie of the year, not being Bijan, I think it's going to have to be like Anthony Richardson, who just has a ridiculous year. That's not the way that I lean in terms of that happening, but to me, it's like Bijan is going to get fed the ball and just be so good that it's going to be hard to see anyone else really win that award. But let's hear your dark horse first before we start talking about that.
Yeah, I think it's almost an emotional hedge for me.
Okay.
I just think if Tony Pollard, if he can keep his efficiency and they just feed him the rock with Zeke gone, he scares me. Like whenever he gets the ball, he can take it 60 or take it 70 for a touchdown. I think that plus if he gets a massive workload, doesn't get injured, Cowboys are a good team. I think it's Eagles and Cowboys and 49ers.
Same.
I like Cowboys more than 49ers as
Same.
well. I think it's mostly whoever wins the NFC East is probably your Super Bowl participant.
I agree.
And Pollard he's scary. Like he's really good. I think he's pretty good odds still.
Yeah, I agree. That's Pollard more than anyone benefited from Fournette, Zeke, Hunt. I mean, obviously those last two, Fournette and Hunt, haven't gone anywhere yet. But I think everyone was saying one of those guys between Zeke and Fournette were going to be on the Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
And then it didn't happen. And then Malik Davis is not the RB2. It's Rico Dowdle. It's like, I mean, yeah, granted, Deuce Vaughn should be used a little bit, but for the most part, it's him, right? Yep. So that could lead to a massive fantasy year, and it's really going to come down to, for me, like, can he still have the same efficiency and huge plays that he had last year with being such a focal point?
Yeah.
It could be huge. What do you think, Rye? You got
definitely. I agree with that. No, I know my internet is atrocious right now. So, no, I agree with that completely. We can move on to the. I think we hit everybody's dark horse there. Oh, I did. I get Justin Fields.
No, give us your raw offensive rookie of the year pick. Sorry.
Oh yeah, offensive rookie of the year is going to be it's Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young, he's probably has the best chance to win this award if he ends up playing well. He reports coming out of camp that he is the smartest rookie quarterback that we've seen in a while since almost Andrew Luck. So if he ends up playing well, I think he has a good chance of winning this award.
Yeah, I actually had the same one. I think Carolina could surprise. They have a good amount of young talent on that defense too. Yeah. And I think he plays the similar type of game of a top tier game manager where whoever's open, he's going to get it to him. So yeah, they don't have a bunch of top tier wide receiver talent, but they have pros. They have people who know how to get open, and he's just going to find them. I think I do have Carolina winning that division, but
Love
I
that.
also just don't.
Yeah.
I don't like the Saints. I see the Falcons, but I don't know about Ritter, and
Yeah.
just the Bucks are no, like they're not that good.
Yeah.
This is a no.
Yeah, I just.
You're not a Baker guy.
I mean, they'll be fine. I just think they're kind of the Rams. They're going to have that fall off that the Rams had. They went all in when Brady was there. Smart to do it. Now you just have to rebuild. I think they could be a Caleb Williams, Drake May type team.
Yeah, so I want to get into Panthers winning the division a little bit deeper. I certainly looked at them when we were talking division winner as someone that could do it. I completely agree with Bryce in that he is his IQ and his football in his intuition on the field. You can just see it, right? Play breaks down. He finds space. Like he looks like Mahomes when he finds space. Play breaks down and he finds that guy in space. So I mean, and then completes the play with his arm. Sorry to add to that. You know what I mean? You saw it at Alabama a ton. I'm excited to see it in the pros. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time. He will figure it out this year. And to be completely honest, they could still win the division with it taking time, right? Like you might not see it coming right away, but that division winner is likely going to be, a 9-win team. It's just going to be one of those divisions this year. So let's talk about what that offense looks like for them to win the division. Like who is going to be the guy that steps up? I think him and Hurst have a really good chemistry right now, but which receiver is going to be, the guy that they can lean on there? Because I think that's valuable. Planting your flag on someone there because of their ADPs. I want to say that, if you can figure out who will be the guy, you're going to be sitting with a very valuable fantasy player based on ADP.
I almost think it's going to be like each section of the year, there's someone different.
Yeah.
Thielen, I think, is still a pro. I see him at the beginning of the year and then Chark kind of taking over.
Yeah.
And then maybe if Mingo's any good, he'll come on at the end. But I think Chark is probably your most valuable from a receiving option. Miles Sanders is good. Everyone says he can catch because of his rookie year when he had like a few long catches. I've watched a bunch of his games. I don't think he's the best at catching. He's an explosive talent and a good athlete. And I think they'll feed him the ball and he'll do well. I just think almost kind of the narrative based on the offensive rookie of the year is if the Panthers win it over the Falcons, people are going to be saying, oh, it's a quarterback. He's a little bit more valuable. Even if Bijan goes off and is your number 3 fantasy running back on the year, I just think it'll be quarterback position is more valuable and they won.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't hate that. I just think that Bijan has all the hype, and I think it's going to just continue to build. So from a narrative standpoint, ESPN is going to jerk off to Bijan Robinson all year. And I don't hate it. He is that good. He's going to be making plays. I mean, you saw like his first catch of the year was that one-handed grab. Like, yeah, it was a pretty nice play, but ESPN was like, holy shit, we've never seen anything like this before. So I think that's just going to continue. And like, he is so good that you're going to see those types of plays to allow them to climax the media. But yeah, I think to me, I'm a huge Bijan guy. I have since he's put on that Longhorn jersey, and he really hasn't disappointed. It's just been continuing to build. He's got that Saquon athleticism. So I fully expect him to be a top 3 running back. And if they win the division, then how are you going to give it to anyone else? I mean,
I agree with that.
That being said, I'm on your side with Ritter too. Like, is he good enough? Like, just don't make mistakes. Extend some, like, get the ball in low risk situations, get the ball to your 3 fucking athletically beast dog there in Bijan, London, and Pitts, and just don't make mistakes. But will he do that? I don't know.
Yeah, he's got all the weapons in the world to make it happen. I just we'll see.
Yeah, give us your let's hear who your dark horse is, Brian.
You'll like this with your MVP
it's hard.
pick.
Oh, Brian and Ryan, I get.
Sorry, I'll call you Chuck. I'll call you Chuck. I'll call you Chuck.
All right, cool. Just making sure. But go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was gonna say I have Kincaid. He's definitely a dark horse, but if he is the Bills' second receiving option, I just think he'll be a stud. I don't necessarily trust he will be. I think it's going to be Davis, and I think Kincaid will take a little bit because they have already if Kincaid makes one mistake, you just go to Dawson Knox, who's still a solid NFL tight end. But just from a dark horse standpoint, there's opportunity there, and if he takes it, he could be a narrative. Oh, like this tight end went off. He's on the Bills. Bills are the number 1 seed. There's a route there. I wouldn't put a bunch of money, but with those odds, sprinkle a little bit there and see if it hits.
Yeah. I mean, you know how big I am on Kincaid. That's just like, it's my guy. And to be honest, I think you're probably right that Davis ends up being the number 2. But in terms of 2A, I think it's gonna be 2A, and then 2B goes to Kincaid, and I think there's still so much value there for Kincaid to have that 2B. I think you could probably see it being a scenario where he has more targets, catches, Davis has more yards and potentially touchdowns if he can have some of those big plays. That being said, I could also see Kincaid just being an absolute red zone monster, right? Just because of that mismatch, him and Allen get a little bit of that momentum, and then Allen just pounds it to him. So Kincaid, there is an avenue where Kincaid's a 10 touchdown type of receiving option in that slot, right? And if that comes to fruition or even close, he's going to be a top 5 tight end and could very well, let's say the Bills are the number 1 team in the AFC. Allen is the MVP, and that's the highest scoring offense. There definitely is a avenue for that to become a reality. So that is my dark horse pick as well. I'm sure that's a huge shock, but anyways.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me as well. If Kincaid, if he is the weapon for the Bills, I mean, the sky's the limit, really. Sky's the limit. But my dark horse pick, it's hard not to pick Bijan, but I'm going to try to side with Jahmyr Gibbs. If the Lions end up winning the division and Gibbs is this prolific, the next coming of Alvin Kamara, almost 100 receptions, if that's in the realm of possibility for him, I could easily see him winning this award, depending on how Bijan does. It'll be hard. But if the Falcons don't win that division and the Lions end up making the playoffs and they're really, really good and Gibbs is the reason why, I could see Gibbs running away with that award. I'm not gonna add much to that. I'm just gonna say also Quentin Johnson's another guy that you could see a path to that. Let's say Keenan or Mike Williams get banged up like we've seen in the past.
When they get banged up,
I didn't want to put that on them, but and then you see QJ step in. His skill set's ridiculous, right? Talent wise, and Herbert is not going to skip a beat this year when one of those guys go down and QJ slots in. So that 5,000 yard arm, 5,040 touchdowns, it's going somewhere, and QJ could be someone that just comes out with ridiculous numbers because of it. So wanted to add that. Let's jump into the defensive side of the ball. Who do you got, Brian, shade as your defensive player of the year?
I went TJ Watt. I think there's the Steelers. I mean, the stats with him on the field and their winning percentage is absurd. It just kind of comes down to him staying healthy. Micah Parsons, great. I think, if you were to have me bet who do I think is going to win the most, sure. But who do I think has the best odds? I'd go TJ. I just think you get a better value there. He's a stud. And if the Steelers do well in that division, which they have a chance, it kind of depends on Pickett. But that defense is going to be led by him, and he just gets it done year in, year out.
Yeah. I love that. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be better than people are projecting. And I think Pickett and Pickens have something special there. And they just are one of those teams that had a really bad year last year. And if Pickett takes a step forward, that team is going to gain. It's going to light a fire, right? That defense is so good, and it'll light a fire on that defense, knowing they have a shot in a division that's ridiculous. That's probably my most excited division that I have is watching all of those four go head to head all season long. So
they have dog fights too.
Oh, I know. It's so fun. So fun. Staying in that division, I have Myles Garrett. I think he's just a physical freak, right? I can see him having, and that D line is really good. I can see him just kind of bullying people all season. That's my pick as defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett.
No, and kind of going off that, I remember Eagles had the live practice with the Browns, and the whole story was Browns won the first day because Myles Garrett was playing. Second day, Eagles won. Myles Garrett was out. Yeah, he's a stud.
He is an absolute stud. I think that's another team. I want to see their offense click, but if it does, watch out. They could be pretty scary.
Yeah. My defensive player of the year, it kind of hinders on the contract situation. If Nick Bosa figures out his contract, comes back week 1, Nick Bosa is my pick. But that's still up in the air, and I'm confident that they're going to get the deal done. They need Nick Bosa on the field. He is the best player on their team, and I think he can easily win this award if he plays the full season. But if that doesn't happen, TJ Watt, he's a beast, and I think he has equal chance of winning this award, just like Nick Bosa. So those two guys are just dominant, and that's basically my caveat there.
Okay, so let's move on. Dark horse, I have Roquan. We talked about the Ravens. He just is a Raven. We're used to seeing a linebacker that is all over the field wrecking havoc. And if the Ravens end up winning that division, Roquan's going to have just, ridiculous number tackle games. I could see him causing fumbles, just being really everywhere, coming off the edge, being in coverage, getting sacks. He's one of those guys that can he's so talented and so athletic. He can kind of change games. So if the Ravens end up winning that division, I could see them being the 1 seed. They're that good. Just talking through this, I'm so excited for the AFC football this year, man.
I like it because I can be entertained by watching that, and hopefully the Eagles' route is as it seems now, where they got 2 teams to get through. It probably won't be the case, but I like this narrative going into the season more than the NFC being stacked.
Yeah,
definitely. My dark horse pick, Sauce Gardner. We saw what he did last year, winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Sauce is he's a difference maker. And I think he's going to fit into that lockdown, Revis Island type of deal, getting lost in the sauce over there with the Jets. So, yeah, man, if this defense is top tier, like I think they're going to be, and Sauce just has a dominant season, I could see him winning this award.
Yeah, I was going to mention Q. As another guy too. He's physically just monster. And you're seeing it spotlighted on Hard Knocks, but how he can just punch you in the mouth and then get in there so quick, that could be pretty scary.
Yeah. For mine, I had Pat Surtain. similar, where it's just, I don't know, just from looking back, it's normally been a pass rusher, at least past 5 years, pass rusher or cornerback. And if the Broncos are good, I think there's such a negative narrative with Wilson that it's going to shift to, well, these Broncos won it, like the defense won it for him. And I think the defense is led by Surtain. He can take half a field away from you. Like, he's just a stud. Similar to Sauce, I feel I like the odds a little bit more on Surtain because you don't have the Hard Knocks bump.
Yeah. I love that. We just talked about the Broncos earlier. And Surtain is a guy that I'm just in love with. He's an absolute beast. I forget what it was. It was something like if last year, if the Broncos scored 18 points in their first 11 games, they would have been 10-1. Just kind of shows how good that defense is. And I think you're going to see that again this year. So I love that pick, to be honest. I may even actually look into it because, listen, Broncos are another team that's like the year after everyone thinks that they're going to be this new toy in the NFL. Well, you bring in Peyton, you would hope and think that Russell Wilson is a winner, and it's not just Pete Carroll's system like you saw with Geno. But yeah, I mean, like, those two are proven winners in the NFL. If they get some momentum and that defense is that good, it's going to be the defense that carries them, and them just doing enough on offense and could find themselves. I don't think they could really win that division, but certainly make the playoffs, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let's kick it off to Defensive Rookie Player of the Year. I got Jalen Carter. I mean, from what we've heard about Jalen Carter, this guy is a fucking monster.
I do as well. Do you, Shade? Did we just you first unanimous?
Yeah, I do too. I didn't want to do it.
Let's go. Yeah, Jalen Carter, man. I cannot wait to watch this guy play defense on the NFL football field, man. He's just, from everything we've heard, the guy's just unstoppable and just going to be a force to reckon with for years to come in the NFL. So I don't know, Brian, what do you think about that one?
I mean, I love it. Like, just following him all camp, it's like people seem to be hesitant to give him such high praise, but then it still comes out. And with that defensive line, there's not going to be many double teams. He's filling the hole at Javon Hargrave, who last year got 10 sacks. And he'll be right next to Fletcher Cox, who just solid veteran, used to be absolute stud. You got Jordan Davis taking up space. Like, he's never going to be double teamed when you have Hassan Reddick, Sweat on the other side. It's like, it's just going to be one-on-one. And that guy just, but he manhandled Joel Bitonio, I think, in one of their practices. And he's like a top 5 guard in the league.
Yeah.
And they like to rotate their defensive line. So he's going to be fresh, and you're just going to see a bunch of, like, I think, highlight plays by him. And I think that could lead it. I didn't really know where else to go. It was Will Anderson was kind of my other choice, which seemed a little chalky, but I just don't see the Texans winning much.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. He is just a freak. I think a lot of people are hesitant to paint him in that light is because of his off-field issues that you saw and the character flaws. But he could not have ended in a better situation with all of his Georgia guys, a team that is winning now. And, you know, those veterans are just like, hey, man, like, I don't know what's going on, but we're not letting that fly here because we're here to win a Super Bowl. But you put him in a situation where he's comfortable with all those Georgia dogs, and, like, they're going to be saying the same thing. There's a few of them last year who were on that run. And when you're a young kid having that type of a Super Bowl run, you're like, all right, let's lock the fuck in, right? So perfect situation for him to mature or at least stay, you know, out of trouble. So I love that for him. He's just such a physical talent. When he went to the Eagles, man,
I was so happy.
Howie is such a beast, right? Like, Howie really is the best GM in the NFL because every move that he makes is like Of course he did. And it makes so much sense. And it turns out like that's why I think Swift is going to be awesome. I really do think that Swift is going to be awesome because of his skill set. And really all he needs is space. And the Eagles do a lot of that. So, yeah, Howie's a beast. Jalen's a beast. It's hard to not see the Eagles in the Super Bowl. But my dark horse is Joey Porter Jr. We talked about the Steelers. I mean, if he can get 5 interceptions and just kind of that name helps him out a little bit too, right? Yeah. So you talk about ESPN running with narratives. I mean, Joey Porter, if he gets some interceptions and the Steelers are winning games, there's going to be a lot of attention thrown his way. And he's a good player on a good defense in a good division. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on it. So he's my dark horse.
Nice. For me, I got Devin Witherspoon. Witherspoon coming out of Illini, we saw how physical of a defender he was going to the Seahawks. I just think, if Witherspoon can, really fit into that role and be a lockdown defender like I think he is, I think he's got a good chance of winning this award.
Did he just have some injury concern, though?
If he did, I'm not aware of it.
I thought something just came out that he might not be playing week 1. I'll Google it right now.
Please let me know.
But
I was just saying while you're Googling, I can give my pick of Brian Branch for Detroit Lions safety. I just think he was a stud, kind of do-it-all safety at Bama. And if the Lions do take this jump that everyone expects, and if they have a solid defense and he's just on the back end, safeties have room for interceptions. They can get some sacks. You can rack up some forced fumbles. It's a long shot, but I just think he's a solid player. I wanted the Eagles to draft him. Obviously, we did better in the draft than I expected still, but I think he's a solid pick. And kind of going off the Joey Porter Jr., if he can almost mirror his game off Trayvon Diggs of just be all or nothing, where you have 9 interceptions and let up 20 touchdowns, fine, but the stats look good.
Yeah. Witherspoon, I guess they're going to ease. He had a little bit of a hammy. He might not start the year, but they're not worried about him long term. So, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But another guy who's interesting is Tyree Wilson. Like you saw him just, I forget who he bitched, kind of like Jalen Carter, but he threw a stiff arm at someone. I've never seen a 6'5", 300-pound human being get thrown around this way. So do I think, I don't know that, I'm not huge. If you see plays like that, let's put it this way. If you see plays like that happening live in games, then how do you not talk about someone? Will it happen? I don't know. But
I think this is the most up in the air pick. You could have anyone.
Both defensive awards, right? It's always kind of like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what about coaches? I think this would be pretty interesting. Brian, why don't you go ahead and start? I have a feeling I know who your coach of the year is, but why don't you go ahead and let us know?
I don't actually know if you do. I mean, I have Sean Payton.
Oh, okay.
I
thought you were going to go Doug Peterson.
No, but I would love for him to win. But I just think I don't know, this award is normally bad team turned good and they make the playoffs. And I think if they can win, sports media loves him because he was just in it last year. So media is going to be all over him. Russell Wilson performed poorly, so now it's Sean Payton was the savior here. Broncos already have a good defense, which I'm sure he'll somehow get credit for, even though he has nothing to do with it. I just think there's a narrative behind him where if they make the playoffs, I think it's his.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think I want to say that that's going to happen too. I do like the Broncos. I think there's a lot of value on the Broncos right now because, like I talked about earlier, with year after a bunch of people get burned on them. So yeah, I like that a lot. I have that narrative that you just said with my coach of the year, and it's Arthur Smith, which kind of goes along with, Bijan can make him look really good. He's right now, Arthur Smith has made Algier and Cordero look really good. Well, now it's time for a freak athlete to make him look really good. So if Bijan has just that insane year, like I think he has the potential to have, if the Falcons win the division and end up in the playoffs, to me, I could see Arthur Smith winning it. So that's who I took.
And for me, I doubt it'll come as much surprise for the roadies out there, but I'm going with Matt Eberflus. Exactly what Brian was talking about, for a team to go from worst to a really good
worst to first.
Playoff. Yeah, worst to first. That's
number one seed, right, Rye? The Eagles Eagles and Cowboys are going to go head to head and beat each other up a little bit, and the Bears are going to be number one seed in the NFC.
Swoop right in. Yep. Yeah. But no, realistically, I could definitely see a path for the Bears to win the division. And if everything goes well for them, Eberflus is definitely high up there for Coach of the Year. I like what he's doing with the boys in Chicago.
Yeah, I think anyone can win that division. I think anyone can win the NFC South as well. So, yeah, I guess I don't have them winning the division. So I know we've had that conversation multiple times. I don't know, Brian, what's your realistic projection for the Bears?
9-8, 8-9.
Yeah, I have been at 8-9 when we went over our NFC North review. And that's a good year, right? Like, yeah, that means Fields is the franchise quarterback, right? Do you think that's realistic? Is that your projection too?
I mean, I think I love DJ Moore.
So do I.
I mean, I went to University of Maryland. He and Diggs were like the studs, and they both did the exact same thing at Maryland. And just the narrative of you have a really good wide receiver coming to a developing quarterback is just funny to me because it's both they're both Terps that are the good wide receivers coming over. I think he could be an absolute stud, DJ Moore. I don't understand the Fields thing because he was so good in the pass game in college and wasn't really leaning. Yeah, he was a rusher, but wasn't leaning on it as much. And then we just last year, when they started doing well, he just started leaning completely on the run game. Hopefully, I mean, he has the passing talent, he has the arm talent. I think it's more of the mental processing of defenses. I don't know for a fact, obviously, but I think if he can get that down, just keep getting reps, I think he can be a solid. I mean, he has all the talent in the world.
Yeah, for me, so I agree with everything you said. I think that I think he hasn't been put in a situation to succeed, and that's why that you haven't seen the passing. Because listen, man, you gotta, in order to have that confidence in the NFL, the game's faster. Things have to be going right for you. Well, nothing has been going right for the Bears as a whole, and he hasn't had the weapons around him. He hasn't had a stable offense to really showcase that part of his game. But he has shown flashes. I always point to that. He had a 50-yard throw down the left sideline against the Lions where he just dropped in a beautiful pass right into Moody's hands. So that what we saw in Ohio State exists, and this is the year for him to prove that it exists. Well, now he has a true wide receiver one in DJ Moore. He's got some momentum. We just have to see it happen, right?
And I think the rushing game should help him a lot to almost provide a crutch of, now that I'm comfortable and now that I know I can rush it and my coaches aren't going to be annoyed at me. I feel like that's almost what the Eagles did with Hurts was, hey, you have a beautiful deep ball. Let's use that, and then use the running game as almost a crutch. So we're still a productive offense. And then you just keep developing because you keep getting reps and then keep getting the ball down the middle of the field, or like in the middle of the field, like the slant routes and all that, and let your receivers do the rest. And I just think it's a good model to follow for the Bears.
Yeah. Let's hammer out. We don't need to spend any more time on the Bears. I don't know how Ryan snuck that in there, some Bears talk, but let's hammer out our dark horse coach of the year, and then do a recap and sign out.
So mine, I'll just kick it off. Robert Saleh with the Jets. I mean, we all see what he's doing in the with the TV show. I can't think. Hard Knocks, obviously. I don't want to have a blank there, but we see what he's doing. I like what I'm seeing from Robert Saleh. I think Aaron Rodgers is still a dog, and that defense is stellar with the weapons they have. They have a tough schedule, but if they can overcome that tough schedule and be what I think they're going to be, they have a good chance of being one of those elite teams in conversation to be a Super Bowl caliber team. And I think Robert Saleh is a huge benefactor of that, and I think he could easily win this award.
I like it. So I'm going to go with mine. We'll let Brian sign us out. I have I had written down John Harbaugh. However, I think I'm going to change that to the winner of the AFC East. So, or AFC North, sorry. I have Stefanski at 25 to, I'm just looking at the board right now. Stefanski at 25 to 1, Harbaugh at 30 to 1, Zach Taylor at 30 to 1, Tomlin at 20 to 1. So I don't know. I don't even know if that's realistic. Coach of the Year awards to me is usually not like a team that's already there. But if you're going to win the AFC, if you're going to win that division, and then you're going to win that, be the number one seed in the conference, I just think it's going to be a dogfight. There's so many good teams that I think they deserve it. Now, will they win it because of how political the award can be? I don't know, but I just think that will be the best coach of the year.
Yeah, I mean, to go on that, my dark horse was Tomlin. Okay. I don't think he's won it yet, and just he's a top 5 coach. I don't care what anyone says, just that team wins, and I think he's a big reason for it. Culture, whatever it is that he does, I just think he's a big reason for it. And if the Steelers can make the playoffs, you improve with your quarterback. Their defense is stud, like it can be studly defense. I just think it's a good odds at 20 to 1, and he hasn't gotten it. If they keep performing well at the beginning of the year, it'll be like, oh, let's win this for Tomlin or whatever. I think he's good odds, and like you said, if they win that AFC North, it's gonna mean a lot.
And Ryan's gonna owe me $1,000.
I cannot believe that Tomlin's never won this award. Like, he's been such a good coach for so long. That's amazing to me that he's never won this award. He should have. He's a dominant coach.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. Well, Brian, hammer out and give us your MVPs and your dark horses. We'll all just list them off and then sign out.
Yeah. So MVP, I think I have Burrow, dark horse, Lawrence, offensive player of the year. Just still find it comical about Taysom Hill, but Jamar Chase and is my regular. Tony Pollard, I think, is a good dark horse. Offensive rookie of the year, I had Bryce Young. Dark horse of Kincaid. Defensive player of the year, I had TJ Watt. Dark horse of Pat Surtain. Rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, I had Jalen Carter. Dark horse of Brian Branch. And then coach Sean Payton, dark horse of Tomlin.
So what you learned doing research for this episode is you're going to go and pick up Taysom Hill in every single league, because the NFL script this year is that Carr goes down, Winston goes down, Taysom Hill ends up at quarterback and wins the division.
And he's your starting tight end in fantasy.
Yeah.
That's
I love
awesome.
it.
All right.
Ryan,
I'll go ahead and my MVP pick was obviously Patrick Mahomes, dark horse of Lamar Jackson. For offensive player of the year, it's Justin Jefferson, dark horse Justin Fields, the Bears. Let's go. My defensive player of the year is Nick Bosa if he gets that contract figured out, with the dark horse of Sauce Gardner. Offensive rookie of the year is Bryce Young with the dark horse of Jahmyr Gibbs. Defensive rookie of the year, Jalen Carter, very similar to the guys here, and with the dark horse of Devin Witherspoon. And my coach of the year is Matt Eberflus. Go Bears, and with the dark horse of Robert Saleh.
Love it. My awards, I have Josh Allen, MVP, Jamar Chase, offensive, Myles Garrett, defensive, Bijan, offensive rookie, Jalen Carter, defensive rookie, coach, Arthur Smith, dark horses, Trevor Lawrence, Bijan Robinson as offensive player of the year, Roquan Smith as defensive, Dalton Kincaid, offensive rookie, Joey Porter, defensive rookie, and the AFC North division champion, that head coach, whether that's Tomlin Stefanski or Taylor Harbaugh. So anyways, that's the award show. I think all three of us can say we cannot wait till Thursday night. This will air on what, Monday or Tuesday, Rye?
Yeah, I believe Tuesday.
Awesome. Well, Shade, I'll say you are one of those guys that I can sit here and just talk fucking football to all day long.
I enjoyed this a lot.
Been an hour and 20 minutes, and like we
Feels
had
like
a long
30 minutes.
Yeah, we had a long Eagles set, like just we could have not stopped talking about every topic, and then it got to a point where it was like, all right, we got to do awards now. So we appreciate having you on. I love your perspective on things. Bringing the data analysis to this podcast is huge. So we're going to lean on you during the season. I hope you enjoyed your time and are going to come back as a guest in the future. So thanks a lot
100%.
for coming on here, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, appreciate
Awesome.
it. Thank you very much for joining us. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Fantasy Roadshow. Stay tuned, and good luck for everybody week 1. Let's go and buckle up.